to Eye on Horror, the official podcast of iHorror.com. This is episode 105, otherwise known as season 6, episode 6. I am your host, James J. Edwards, and with me, as always, is your other host, Jacob Davison. How you doing, Jacob?
Doing good. Finally back on the West Coast and had a hell of an adventure back home in Massachusetts.
Yeah, we missed an episode, so we have a lot to talk about this time. But yeah, sorry guys, if you wait with bated breath for our episodes, we skipped a week. Also with us is your other host, John Correa. How you doing, Correa?
Doing great. Glad to be back. But yeah, our schedules have been fucked, to put it lightly, of lately. But Jacob, you went to Salem Horror Fest.
I did. I had a short in the festival, the October Martyr, which was directed and co-produced by Rob Teamstra, who I had also traveled with. And it was really nice. I'd never been to Salem Horror Fest, and it had been a while since I'd been to Salem, actually. I'm from Massachusetts, but, I made it up there every now and then. And yeah, the festival was great. I loved meeting Kay for the first time. She runs the festival, and I met a lot of other great filmmakers, and it was very accommodating. I got to see a lot of interesting shorts and films, and yeah, right now hoping see what happens with the audience awards. Fingers crossed.
Did you have a chance to go to the Witch Museum or the Satanic Temple headquarters?
No, although I did walk through that Salem Witch Maze dungeon thing. It was fun, very kitschy sort of way, and also great food in Salem. Like, I went to the pizzeria and Rockefeller's. That was good.
We have a ton of stuff to talk about because there have been during the time that we missed an episode, a lot of cool stuff has come out. So, but the big thing that has come out is Evil Dead Rise.
Yes.
What do you guys think of Evil Dead Rise?
Oh, well, I was at the pre-screening they did at the Arrow Theater, and there is just nothing quite like seeing an Evil Dead movie with a completely sold out crowd, and just like people yelling and screaming and laughing, and it's a real crowd pleaser movie. And it's just I was very interested in the concept because for so long it was just Ash, Cabin in the Woods, even the remake was Cabin in the Woods, kind of followed the beats. Like, this is far left turn because it's this old decrepit high rise in Los Angeles. They find the Necronomicon and the recording, and well, now we got Deadites in LA.
It's pretty much everything that I wanted from an Evil Dead movie. I was actually originally pissed because the Evil Dead press screening was the same night as Beau is Afraid, which we'll get to. And I was really bummed. I'm like, shit, I'm only going to see one of them. But it worked out for the better because I got to see, and, I promised I wouldn't say how this happened. Let's just say someone is on my Christmas card list now. I got to see a different preview screening of Evil Dead Rise that was with a full audience, not just press. And I'm so glad because you are 100% right. Those movies are so much fun with a packed crowd. And I was giddy the whole time. It's everything I wanted from an Evil Dead movie at this point. Because like you said, it's a different spin on it because it takes it to the more urban atmosphere. But it's an Evil Dead movie. It is, it's more akin to the 2013 one. So if you're one of those people who were pissed off that this humor of the original isn't in Fede's, this might not be for you because it's brutal, it's gory, it's dead serious, but it's a freaking Evil Dead movie and it's so much fun.
Although I will add, it is a bit more serious than the usual Evil Dead movie, but it still had some pretty good gags. Like, it even did like the eyeball spit thing.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I saw it twice so far in theaters, and I went to the early screening at the Alamo Drafthouse, so the pre-show was fucking incredible, showing Evil Deads from all around the world. But definitely, like, the second viewing, like, the humor popped out a lot more with the second viewing, and it's just it's such dark gonzo humor. During the pre-show, they had an interview with Lee, the director, who said
Lee Cronin.
Lee Cronin, who said that the dark humor is kind of like in between Evil Dead 1 and 2. So it's not as slapsticky as Evil Dead 2, but the gonzo humor is definitely there. Well, except for the eyeball bit, but the eyeball bit is fucking gorgeous. And
Yeah.
you keep saying it's everything that you wanted from an Evil Dead movie. It's everything I never knew I wanted from an Evil Dead movie. Like it had all the like ingredients that you need for an Evil Dead movie, but by putting it into a new urban area, it was just it was incredible. And I gotta say, I don't know about you guys, but as someone who lives in LA, I want that apartment. Like that apartment in that building, that is exactly what I want. I want a giant apartment for cheap that has old architecture in it. I don't care if like the sink is kind of fucky and all that, except for like, the Necronomicon being in the basement. That apartment seemed fucking killer.
And the fact that it's going to be torn down.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's not an ideal situation, but like, everything else about it was very, very awesome. But yeah, no, I absolutely loved it. I really want to talk about a lot of points that are very spoilery, but maybe we'll save it for like another mini-sode or something.
Yeah, maybe we'll do a mini-sode on it because you don't want to have it spoiled, even though how much can you spoil an Evil Dead movie? I mean, it is very much an Evil Dead movie.
Yeah.
And I was surprised at how well it translated to a different setting than the cabin in the woods, but they pulled it off. It was great.
I do want to say to everyone out there, the title card is incredible. It's out there online now. Stop taking fucking videos and pictures of it with your goddamn phones in theaters. I understand. It is incredible. It is awesome. Keep your phone in your fucking pockets. Thank you.
I saw that so much there. I'm going to go on a rant for a second. The Return of the Jedi celebrates its 40th anniversary, and
I went to one of those screens.
Did everybody whip their phones out to record the opening crawl? Because I
was at Alamo, so if anybody did that, they could get kicked out.
Yeah, they shut that shit down there. I saw so many on my timeline, and these are people that I expect better from, and they're showing the Return of the Jedi crawl, and I'm like, really, people just enjoy it. I went to a midnight screening of Halloween a couple Halloweens ago when the theater that I used to do that at was open. It closed shortly after the pandemic, but and the opening scene with the pumpkin and the theme, people were ripping out their phones for that. It's like, people, God. Anyway,
it's not a concert.
Speaking of humor, have either of you guys seen Beau is Afraid?
No.
Okay, Beau is Afraid. It's the new Ari Aster movie who brought us Hereditary and Midsommar. It's challenging. It is 3 hours. And it is basically, I've heard Ari Aster describe it as the Odyssey or Lord of the Rings, like a journey movie, but it's basically a Jewish guy wanting to get home to his mother. And that's what it is. Basically, Joaquin Phoenix is this really unstable guy, and he just wants to go home and visit his mother. And there's just obstacle after obstacle after obstacle. And the reason I think it's described, Ari Aster described his next movie a long time ago as a 4-hour horror comedy or something like that. And it's not 4 hours. And the comedy is weird because it's the kind of comedy where you're not sure if you should laugh. I'm sure it's intentional, but you're laughing and you feel weird about laughing because it's just odd. But it's a weird movie. It's going to be divisive. It's a challenging movie. It is. Beau, the main character, is famously unreliable as a narrator. So the entire movie, starting with the first act, you're like, is this really happening or is he imagining all this stuff? And you never really get an answer to that question. Like his whole journey, you're like, okay, how much of this is real? How much of this is fake? Or did he die at the beginning? There's a point at the beginning of the movie where you're like, okay, this is going to take a turn and we're going to find out he died then. And this whole thing has been a dream. And that doesn't happen. Spoiler alert. He doesn't end up, it doesn't tell you, yeah, he's been dead since this point. But there is a point where you're like, I don't know. It's hard to tell how much is real and how much is in his head. And it is, it's a beautifully made movie. The imagery, the cinematography, the sound, the music, everything is just beautiful about it. But from a story standpoint, it's going to be challenging to some people. And I think that was probably Astor's point. He doesn't care what people think of his movie. He made it for him. And yeah, it's a crazy one. So also talking about comedy, Renfield. Did you guys see Renfield?
Yes.
Yeah.
I loved Renfield.
I really loved it too. It's funny because it focuses more on Dracula's sidekick, Renfield, which is Nicholas Hoult. But Nick Cage is Dracula.
Oh yeah.
And it's pretty hilarious because Renfield goes to these support group meetings for codependency because he's codependent on Dracula. And it's funny because at one point he breaks free from him and he gets his own apartment and starts living his own life. And he comes home one day. This is what cracked me up about probably the funniest gag in the movie to me. He comes home one day and Dracula's in his apartment and he goes, "Hey, Renfield." And then he looks down and he sees he has a welcome mat that says, "Welcome, come on in." And he's like, "Oh," because he invited Dracula in with his welcome mat.
Yeah, and I love the contrast of Dracula looking very classical look, and Renfield, I guess, must have been repressed on color because of all that. So like his whole apartment is like this kind of almost John Waters-ish pastel colors.
Yeah, and the clothes that he
great.
gets when he breaks away from Dracula, they're all like bright and colorful. Probably one of the other funny things I loved was like towards the beginning when they're given the backstory of it, they rip off shots from the original Dracula, but instead of Bela Lugosi, it's Nick Cage. So like if you know the original Dracula, it's hilarious because it's freaking it should be Bela Lugosi, but it's Nick Cage.
Yeah, because actually that's the thing. I was at the pre-screening at the Arrow, and they had the director Chris McKay there, and they said, when they were making the movie that, it's a Universal movie, so they had access to all the footage from the original Dracula, so they actually edited that footage to insert Dracula and Nicolas Cage and Nicholas Hoult as Dracula and Renfield, so it looked like that the original Dracula had them in it.
Yeah,
awesome.
I love that. That was hilarious. They do like the Forrest Gump thing where it's basically, it's the original movie, but it's like they've always been those characters. It was hilarious.
No, and I really dug it just because it was kind of a subversive Dracula movie and just generally a really fun horror comedy, and especially like it was more action packed than I would have expected because Renfield basically gets super powered every time he eats the bugs because he's using Dracula's power. So there's bits where like he's ripping people's arms off and he's like punching people's heads off, and he even beats a dude to death with his own arms. So like they were just having a blast with the sheer amount of violence.
Yeah, that was fun. And he, it's like every time shit's gonna go down because there's other subplots with like drug cartels and other stuff, and whatever shit's gonna go down, Renfield is like, "I need a bug. Find me a bug," because he needs to eat a bug to get his powers.
Yeah, and at one point he scarfs down an entire ant farm, sand and all.
Yep.
That's gnarly.
Yeah, it was Renfield's it's a good time. It's kind of getting skewered. I've seen a lot of critics are not into it, but I had a blast with it.
I feel that happens a lot with comedies.
On a similar note, has anyone else seen Sisu?
No,
but I want to.
Yeah,
I pre-ordered the 4K already because
I've heard just a lot of Nazi killing.
Oh, there is a lot of Nazi killing.
That headline where it's just like, yeah, it's 90 minutes of Nazis being killed and tortured, and I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, I was into it. But yeah, no, it's directed by Jalmari Helander, who did Rare Exports. Remember the Christmas horror movie? It's really simple but really fun because it's like toward the end of World War II, the Nazis are evacuating Finland and they're doing a scorched earth policy where they're just destroying and stealing everything they can on the way out, and they happen to come across this old Finnish soldier who is prospecting for gold, Atami Korpi, played by Jorma Tomila. And yeah, he's paying for gold, and he finds the motherlode, and these Nazis decide they're going to steal his gold so that they can make themselves rich at the end of the war. And he's not going to let them have it without a fight, and it just has some of the most over the top like uh war fights and brawls I've ever seen. Like there's a point where he's under a lake, and so the Nazis send one soldier after another into the lake to try and get him because they figure he can't hold his breath long enough, and so he just like slits the Nazis' throats when they dive in after him, and he like steals their air to stay underwater.
That's awesome. And that's
genius writing right there. Who came up with that? That's awesome.
I don't know. And just one of my favorites is like that. Like the Nazis are chasing him into a minefield, and he's surrounded by mines. So he just takes the mines and starts chucking them at the Nazis and blowing them up.
And that's the dad from the Rare Export movies, right? Who plays the lead?
Oh yeah, I think he was the dad. Yeah, he was.
That's awesome. He's one of those actors that when I see him pop up and stuff, I'm like, I'm gonna get a treat because he was great. Also, I don't know if you guys ever saw Big Game from the same director, but that was a lot of fun too.
Yeah, I got to see that one.
Oh, it's worth it. But yeah, no, I'm super excited for Sisu, and yeah, like I said, I already got the 4K pre-ordered. So,
oh no, it's worth it. Like if you like seeing Nazis killed, it's the movie for you.
It's like the one group of people that I don't mind a lot of like torture porn happening to. You know,
yeah. Like, and they even go into the history in the movie about the war, so it was interesting from that perspective. But just in general, though, it's a kick-ass action movie.
What you're saying is it's educational, and so you should bring the children.
Yes, it's a documentary.
Yeah. Would it make a good double feature with Inglourious Bastards?
Oh yeah, it would. In fact, I was thinking that while I was watching the movie, they'd go hand in hand.
Oh man. You're gonna leave that double feature ready to punch all the fucking Nazis.
Guess what our theme tonight is?
Just blasting dead Kennedys on the way out. Just
and Nazis.
Yeah, go green room next.
Yeah. Come down. Yeah.
Bring it back to reality.
Did you guys see Guardians of the Galaxy 3?
I did.
What'd you think?
I really liked it.
It's my favorite of the 3 Guardians of the Galaxy movies, I think. I didn't realize I could care that much about a CGI talking raccoon.
Voiced by Bradley Cooper, though.
Oh my, I was almost in tears in some place. And, we don't want to spoil anything about it, but basically the whole movie is them trying to save their friend Rocket.
Yeah. No, I was amazed. Like, I was in the theater and I didn't cry, but I definitely felt the emotional impact. And just the theater I was in, though, to quote Scrooged, Niagara Falls. Yeah. Like so many people were crying during that movie.
You could hear sniffles all over in ours. Yeah. It's a pretty emotional movie people think, Tony Stark and Spider-Man, in the Infinity War movies, I don't feel so well, Mr. Stark. People were crying about that. Yeah, it's
well, that's sad.
Tearjerker.
That scene, just quick tangent. That scene's sad because of Peter's spider sense.
Yeah.
So he sensed it coming, but didn't know what the fuck it was. But he didn't know what was going on. That's why he's going, I don't feel good, Mr. Stark, is because he had that extra like foresight, but had no idea of because it doesn't tell him exactly what it is. He just knows something bad's coming. And
that was heavy.
When it comes to that, that's why that's so heavy and fucked. But yeah, I mean, if they follow because I read the comics when they came out, if they follow Rocket's origins, yeah, I can imagine that it's a real tearjerker.
They go into a lot of his. I don't know if it's the same because I didn't read the comics. They go into a lot of Rocket's origins, and it's pretty heartbreaking where he came from, and also, there's more to it as to why it is sad, but. And this is supposedly, they've been billing it as the end of the Guardians of the Galaxy. It's not the end of the Guardians of the Galaxy. It's the end of this formation of it. Because at the end, I don't want to spoil anything, but at the end, you see where the team has no choice but to kind of break up. But then, there's a new Guardians of the Galaxy that forms. Because it even says, the credit scenes, it's like Guardians of the Galaxy will be back. So... But, it's not the same team.
Which is understandable. I mean, rosters change all the time, but I'm glad that they were able to finish it at least with this one.
Yep.
So I have you guys have been going off on a lot of movies I haven't seen yet, but have you guys seen Polite Society?
No, no.
Not yet. I was planning on seeing
Ooh.
it next week.
It's not horror, but there is a lot of action and it's really fucking good. So I'm going to talk about it for a second. But it's about these two sisters. One wants to has the goals and ambitions to become a stunt woman, and her older sister is an artist. And their lives aren't going super great, especially the older sister. She dropped out of art school, and they're both Hindi background, and so there's a lot of cultural clash of that with modern women and tradition. So the older sister ends up kind of getting into an arranged marriage, and the younger sister senses something wrong. She's like, "No, you're changing too much with this," and so she's trying to basically kidnap her sister before she gets married, and it is so good. It is so much fun. It's got a high energy to it. It reminded me a lot of Sorry to Bother You, but it doesn't go quite as gonzo as that movie. But it's very high energy. I left that theater like bouncing around, and that wasn't because of my caffeine at all.
Is it like a martial arts movie kind of a thing?
There's a lot of fight scenes.
Okay.
They're very over the top. They're very funny. But that third act is done really, really well. I would highly recommend it just because like it feels like one of those movies that like it's gonna find its audience, and when it finds its audience, people are gonna absolutely love it. It's just real good. I just wish more people, have seen it so far. I mean,
The way you describe that, when it finds its audience, is going to be huge. That reminds me of RRR. Is it going to be that big when it finds its audience? Because that was a phenomenon.
well, I mean, RRR is an absolute epic of epic proportions and just like insane.
That should be on the poster. An epic of epic proportions.
That movie is. I still haven't seen it, but
What? You still haven't seen RR?
Yeah, you have to see it. It's
You're
crazy.
missing out.
there's an ongoing joke in my house where it'll be like 10 o'clock at night, and I go, "Hey, Lindsay, you want to watch this movie? It's 3 hours long." Yeah,
RRR is crazy because like there'll be like these knockdown, drag out fights, and then it'll cut to like a song and dance number. it's it's Bollywood.
A friend of mine put it best. It's basically the closest we've gotten to a good live action Dragon Ball Z movie.
there's no song and dance. There is one dance sequence, but it was a part of the wedding. There's some Bollywood influence, but not, it's more straight up action comedy. But what I mean by when it finds its audience, I mean, it's got cult written all over it.
Got it. Okay.
But it's a lot of fun. Felt very much so like kind of like an Edgar Wright movie in a lot of ways, of like that style of like action and comedy and like quirkiness.
Does it have the soundtrack of an Edgar Wright movie?
It does. It really does. That soundtrack is fucking dope. That soundtrack's dope.
Yeah, I want to see it next week at Alamo or something.
That's another thing we didn't mention about Guardians of the Galaxy. The soundtrack is as spot on. But the thing is Star-Lord lost his Walkman, so now he has a Zoom.
Oh yeah.
And so it's like an MP3 player with all this other stuff. So it moves into like 80s and 90s and even 2000s stuff. But yeah, every song is perfect.
Oh yeah, no, James Gunn really knows how to put a mixtape together.
Hell yeah, he does. Yeah.
Let's see, on other new releases, which kind of horror. Did any of you see that anime movie, Suzumi?
Mm-mm.
Oh, that was a fun one. I saw it while I was on the East Coast between festival weekends. It's by Makoto Shinkai, who did Your Name, that pretty big anime movie from a few years ago. Basically, it's about this girl who meets this exorcist who's trying to keep these gates closed to keep this demon from underneath Japan from getting out and causing disaster. And at one of the gates, he gets cursed by the spirit and turned, I shit you not, into a chair. So the girl and the exorcist, who's now a chair, have to go across Japan and try and keep the gates closed to stop this demon from getting out. And it's the thing with Shinkai, like he has these very ridiculous and absurd premises, but it was very emotionally rending and kind of deals a lot with the themes of grief and response to disaster, and beautifully animated. Like, it looks stunning.
And also, if you haven't watched it yet, Blu-ray Brothers Halfway to Halloween special on Shudder is fucking incredible. If you were missing the skits from Dragula Titans, this makes up for it. It's campy, it's fun, and there's a great performance by the satanic doo-wop group Twin Temple in it. Also, Katya does an entire song about ravioli.
Everybody loves ravioli.
But even the Boulets are like, yeah, Katya's going to sing a song about ravioli. What does that have to do with Halloween? I have no fucking idea. And let me tell you, showstopper. It's incredible.
Cool. All right. And now we are joined by a very special guest. We have Berkley Brady, the director of the upcoming Dark Nature. How you doing, Berkley?
I'm very well. Very happy to be here.
Hey, we're happy you're here. The question I always like to start off with is, how did you get started in filmmaking? I mean, has it always been what you want to do, or did you get led down the path by something else? Or
It's funny. I have a friend of my mom's, and he did concert promotion. And so we had friends just in movie production as well. So when Legends of the Fall was filming in Alberta, I got to go to the set. And when I told him that I went into film, he's like, I'm so sorry. Tell your mom I'm so sorry for introducing you to production. But I think at that time, it just seemed so impossible to be from Alberta, Canada, and make movies. So when I went to that set, I was amazed by things like they had built a house, but when you went into the house, there was no second floor, just stairs. Yes, and then just lighting and room for the camera. There was a snack shed. The craft shed was part of the backyard farm shed, but you opened it up and it was just like every candy and every snack you can imagine. It's like, whoa, what is this place?
That is the best part of set, is the crafty trailer.
Yeah. Yes, no questions asked. You can come in, you can come out. No one checks your pockets.
You can go up and ask, yeah, can I have some fruit, 3 jerkies, and you can order the most random combination stuff, and they're like, yeah, coming right up.
I know. I love that. I love that. Or when you come up, you're like, where's my hot sandwich? You're like, not yet, Berkley, not yet. 15 more minutes till those come back.
is there a good film scene in Alberta now, or do you have to go to like Vancouver or Toronto? I mean, is there a little scene in Edmonton, or?
Well, I'm actually in Calgary, so we're south of Edmonton. Okay. Yeah, I was born in Edmonton, and it's booming here. We are definitely a high demand location. We are not huge for above the line, although there is a really big indie scene here and a lot of people doing cool horror movies and a lot of people coming back from Vancouver who moved there to work here. But I mean, Predator Prey shot here, actually some of the same locations as my movie. Trivia question, if you can see which one. And Fargo, we just had Wind River, Next Chapter. It's so busy here that it's hard to crew. And that was an issue we had. So it's a really high demand location, Alberta, because we have the Rockies, you have prairies, we have horses, we have such hardcore crews who can work in the most extreme weather and do it in ways that blows my mind how tough the crews are here and how good transport, everything. We have everything here. And we also have some tax credits. The government's been putting more into that so we can host bigger and bigger productions. And there's also the exchange rate. So every time you come from America, your dollar is 30% stronger. So it's like a 30% sale on everything for you. Whereas when I come to you, it's like everything's 30% more. So that's why it's hard to travel in the States.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's bustling. And same with the indie scene. There's a really strong indie scene, it's kind of like a horror ghetto happening here.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really cool.
I want to go to the horror ghetto. That sounds like a good place. That just sounds like a Magnolia Park for here in LA. There's just like a lot of horror shops called that now.
Nice.
Speaking of locations, you guys got some incredible outdoor I mean, the entire thing's outdoor except for like the very opening. And I will be looking out to see the Predator Prey similarities with the locations now. What were some of the difficulties like? Because you guys did such a good job. Were you guys as remote as it looks in the movie? And what were some of the difficulties in getting to those spots?
Well, I think one of the main difficulties is just the travel. So it would be about 45 minutes to an hour drive each way, which, that's getting into territory where if we could, we would have liked to have hosted people. But there's areas where you weren't really near a hotel anyway. And we just didn't have that budget to provide for people. So when you're waking up at 4 a.m. in the car by 4:30, so you're at set by 5:45 to be there for a 6 call time, it adds up. It weighs down on the will to live for each person there. And so what we did was we went into some provincial parks and tried to find locations that were close to road access. And the only thing that wasn't really close to road access was down at the water scene. And that involved a hike for the crew of kind of a big hill. And that really also added up on the day because you have to go to the bathroom, up the hill, down the hill, your equipment, up the hill, down the hill, lunch, up the hill, down the hill. And so by the end, I remember just looking around as we were all coming up the hill and people just looked like, fuck my life. You know, just like, it's so hard. And that was actually the predator prey location where she gets chased by the bear that in the water there, the beaver dam.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
yes. So they built in and brought in a beaver dam, whereas we just used there is that sort of log pile up. And we had the actors like going in there. They did have wetsuits on. They have little like custom wetsuits. So they weren't in just their clothes, but it's still a glacial river. And so for Predator Prey, I was taking the DP down there and we'd already scouted the location. And so I didn't know Predator was also shooting there, but their locations, people were down there setting up. And they had like hot tub there for the actor and porta potties. I was like, oh my gosh, how did you get porta potties down here? Like, oh, the helicopter dropped them off.
That studio budget money.
Right? I was like, the helicopter, of course. So for us, we did not have that. So yeah, it was. We really did put that effort in, everyone knowing that it's going to be worth it in the end to create this feeling. Because there's parks in Calgary, like we have one of the biggest urban parks in the world. It's an amazing park. You could totally make a scene there. But you're going to hear the train in the background at times. You'll hear traffic, you know, and I just thought, we've come this far. Let's just like give the actors the feeling. And so we really went to the woods, and then the where you see them climb up to that cave, that was about a 20-minute drive or walk from Circus. And that was like straight up. So that was also really challenging, but it's like, it's a real cave in the Rocky Mountains. Like, come on, we got to go.
That's awesome. It really does help in creating that cut off, and you're out there when you're shooting practically and not have obviously trains are a dead giveaway, and who doesn't like to bring up you seeing the car go by in Lord of the Rings in the background. You know,
right?
Yeah, it helps with the isolation. I think that's the word you're looking for. Yeah,
that's the word I was looking for.
Yeah, the isolation of the characters.
And I think hiking's hard, right? Like, it's a little hard to be on a hiking trip no matter what age you are or who you are. And I think having that sense of fatigue, of course, the actors can act fatigue, but there's also just a level, I think, that you can pick up of like, there's a focus you need to be there. And I think that's just a quality I wanted them to have. And I think they do. And
I did want to ask about that. What was the casting process like?
Well, I'm Métis, and so that's, I don't know if you guys in the States know much about that. When I went to school there, everyone's like, what is that? But we're an Indigenous group in Canada. We're like when the French were here, they mixed with the local Indigenous people, especially Cree, and we sort of like made our own thing. We had a couple hundred years where it was like, we just do our own thing in our way here. So I really wanted to have as much Indigenous representation in the film, behind the camera and in front. So that definitely played a role. So I had worked with Madison Walsh on a TV show about Louis Riel, who's a Métis leader and hero. And I thought she was just so good and so smart, and I wanted to work with her again. And then I heard about Roseanne Superno from a friend here, an actor, and she suggested her. And I liked her, and I liked that she was local, so I chose her. And Helen Belay, I'd worked with her on a little short film, it hasn't come out yet, but it's called Song of the Dead. And I thought, she's just so talented, also local. So I kind of have this dream of cultivating these working relationships with actors here so that we can do more here, even on the fly. It doesn't always have to be such a big project, but just like, kind of like a troupe. And then with Hannah, it was really hard to find the lead because I'd had actually an offer out to somebody else that we were just in a holding pattern for so long, and it didn't end up, we were really close. It just didn't work out. And so of course it's like a bit of a panic because it's the lead role. And then I had heard of her and started to see some of her other work. And it's like, she really has this sort of like, she's such a beautiful woman, but I think she's not afraid to go to like ugly places. And I really liked that. And so I met with her over online, and I just felt confident that she could do it. And it was really great to be on set and just see how good she is and how good they all are. And to see, that was the first time I got to work with a whole ensemble of people who are just, they know what they're doing. They were just, I could give them a direction, or the idea they brought themselves was already spot on. And Hannah and Madison would always have a competition of like who could do it in one take. So sometimes I will say Madison, she did cheat a little. Like Hannah would be doing her take and Madison would be in the back doing faces like, trying to make her mess up. Because they had that competition going, but they're just so talented, all of them.
Which is needed because this is very heavy subjects that are brought on. Each one of these women has experienced past trauma that they are overcoming and in various stages of it, which of course the Woods brings back in full force. What was the process of getting to the truths of that, or like representing and showing that in an accurate form? I mean, we see with the main character, at the very beginning that the guy is a bastard. I mean, it's just right out the gate. And seeing those traumas and those experiences manifest in each one of these women, what was that like? I mean, that's hardworking in getting out, not only in the writing but in the performances.
Yeah, I think for them, that's what they do. For them, they can express every range of emotion and they're complete pros. So I don't know if they found that aspect of it challenging, but I think in writing it and thinking of it, I did so many rewrites, and I had rewrites where you don't really realize what happened in her relationship until later. But then I thought, well, this is a horror, so I want to start with something scary, and let's just look at this scene of, I guess you could call it domestic abuse, but it's just an abusive relationship, and it's a toxic relationship. And it was important for me to show that they are both in this. He takes it to the next level because he's a sociopath, but she's not like this sweet little perfect mouse victim. Like, she's in this bad relationship and making the choice to be there. So she needs to figure out why she's doing that. And I think that's a bit more interesting than like bad guy, like sweet girl, or, good, bad person. It's like, it's very complex why people are in bad relationships. Right. And so I really wanted to, I was looking at just at the end of so many horror movies, you think like, man, those people who are left, they're going to be pretty fucked up. Like, they're pretty traumatized. And what if you just start the movie like, yeah, we'll just take it for a given, like that these people have all been through life and already are coming with the trauma, going to the woods, trying to deal with it. And maybe it's truthful to what I know is that just because you start working on a problem doesn't mean you're going to have fewer problems. Life is going to be delivering whatever it is. And that's kind of what's horrific about life.
The problems will follow you to the woods sometimes.
Yeah, wherever you go, there you are.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I did. And I really did like that, though, that each member of the group kind of has those flashbacks. And instead of, just seeing them in the midst of it, like we actually flash back with them, or like we see the visions that they see. What was that process like, especially since it kind of brought people in and out of the forest?
Yeah, I think I really wanted to make their experience subjective and to bring the audience into what they were feeling. So I think that with trauma, PTSD, and my own experience with it, like I was robbed when I was in Brooklyn, and went like mano a mano, what do you call it? Like contact, like it became like a fight. Like I was fighting back because it's a long story. They say you shouldn't fight back, but you have to be in the moment and sense like what you sense. Anyway, long story short, I got my stuff back, except for my phone. But just like being attacked and fighting, there would be things like 2 days later or 3 days later, I would see someone just run out the corner of my eye, and it would just make me scream. And it wasn't like I was screaming when I got robbed. It was just like, and it wasn't like I was like not in control of it. I was like, oh my God, like just seeing that quick movement, it just made me scream. Like that was just a purely physiological response. So like, holy crap, if you went to combat, or if you're someone who you know, I know not everyone in combat gets PTSD, but like, I think I would be one who would, like, just to have this involuntary experience or going through, difficult things. I think like rumination, not being in the moment, you're just brought back you're back thinking about something that's not about where you are in that moment. And that can really rob you of your life. And so I wanted to show that each character was dealing with their own version of what happened to them in the past and not become trauma porny and go into these like exploitative flashbacks. So I like that level of voyeurism too. Like part of me is like, oh, it'd be kind of fun to go see like what really happened to her. Like, it's a guilty pleasure and I'm not proud of that, but like, I don't hate it to see that too. And I just decided like, let's keep it here in the present and show like what they're dealing with here and allude to what happened, and people can fill it in with their imagination. Like go on YouTube, you can get all crazy stories and, you know, like I feel like we've had enough of it.
But even just because that is one of the important things, because outside of Hannah, we only get little flashes of what the others have been through, but it's just enough to let you know like, oh, and you, like you said, the mind fills it in. And I really appreciated the those moments, especially the spacing out and people going, where were you? Where were you just now? And you can see a little bit of a time lapse, especially with Hannah, that those made it feel really real.
Yeah, I think, you know, the type of person, I'm just looking at myself and some of my other friends, like we've gone through harder times. Just to be honest, I wasn't the best friend to them at the time when you need your friends the most, or is maybe the time you're not going to be the best for them. And I thought that was an aspect of just friendship that I wanted to explore and I hadn't seen done. Yeah,
definitely the moment where the friend goes, "This was your last chance." I was just like, not now, but I also get it. But I also, you know, it's like, how much can you try to help someone who's not doing the work, or it doesn't seem like they're doing the work, you know? It's
that. What was the line? Something about I don't want to be, I don't want to care about you more than you do, or something like that.
Yeah.
That was the one that really stabbed. You're like, oh,
yeah, that's heavy.
Because she's like pushed to that brink, and she's looking. I think for Hannah's character, she has to. For Joy, it's like she has to look at how is this violence that I've been a part of and still sort of engaging with, how is it hurting others around me? Yeah. And can she make the right choice for her friends if she can't make it for herself? Can she start by making it for her best friend?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was also going to ask what it was like working with Kira Harper as kind of the authority figure in Dr. Dunley, and how that dynamic kind of played out.
Yeah, Kyra Harper, she is incredible too. I'm sorry, I didn't mention her when I was talking about the casting, because that was also kind of came down to two actors. And I just felt like I wanted someone who was older than the others, because I feel like there's just an emotional authority you can have with an older person. And I think she also is just like such a acting veteran, theater veteran, just so good. Like when we did ADR for her screams, we're like, her scream, like she can scream on a dime. Like all manners can be like, one like this. She'll be like, what? Like, she's just so good. And she wasn't there for as much of the shoot, so we were sort of flying her back from Toronto a couple times. But it was really great. We actually worked with, I had a psychologist come and work with the group when everyone first got there. And I wish we had been able to do that earlier, because I think I would have tweaked some of the things in the film. But that was especially helpful for Kyra, because she and I could pull her aside and be like, what would Dr. Rochelle say? Remember when Dr. Rochelle? So like the actors did basically like in character, a group therapy session with a real psychologist.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. That's intense.
It was really intense and really cool to see like their backstories and what they were bringing to the character, and then dynamics that happened in the group. Like they kind of went at each other, and I was like, oh, I wish we could have filmed this and like brought this dynamic a little. But then they did, and it was like a touch point that we had through the shoot. And there's one scene that we cut that you kind of alluded to some of their interpersonal dynamics. But with Kyra, that was really, really great, because we could look at the way the psychologist would handle these heated moments. And it, you know, she's a pro. Like she says and does things that are not what the average person would do. She's really leading sort of by example. So for Kyra, we could always say like, well, what would Dr. Rochelle say here? Remember how she steered this? And yeah, I think for people who don't believe in therapy or hate therapy, I like that at the beginning, you're going to be like, yeah, this is not good. This is a bunch of bull crap. But then in my direction, it was like, she is very sincere. And I think this trip could have been a big success in a different forest.
There's something about the movie that we need to kind of tiptoe around because we don't want to spoil anything. But I think all of us want to talk about the creature, the monster. Now, at first, when these ladies are in this forest, you start thinking it might just be the haunted forest or, with their flashbacks and their trauma rearing its head. But there is, in fact, a monster. Can you talk a little bit about the monster design, and how did the monster come about?
Well, it's a very dramatic tale, actually, with the monster.
I'm glad I asked.
Me too. Because the idea of the monster is that some interdimensional wormhole, black hole, dimensional thing happened where this thing landed in this place. And over the eons has evolved, just like any life form here. But it's kind of stuck in a wrong dimension, but it has dimensional powers. Like it can move through dimensions in ways we can't. So that's why it can target your thoughts. And that this thing is basically going to be feeding off anything you bring it. So it could be, if you're coming in fear and anger, it's going to make you more fearful and angry. But if you came maybe offering something or with a different energy, it's going to give something a little bit back. So in my idea, it's people had once understood this creature and its power, and we're using it in a medicinal way, but we're also giving it offerings and kind of living in harmony with it. But since those people were kicked off the land, it's been kind of starving. So it's just sort of in itself desperate and going to just be bouncing off whatever comes. And it's kind of angry because it's been lonely. So I really also wanted it to be reflective of the predators of the region who also have evolved in those environments. And so especially its skin and the bark. I wanted it to look like bark in the rock. So we took a lot of samples from that place and that cave and that forest to design its skin. In terms of what it really looked like, we actually were working with an incredible creature designer, but the suit and creature that he made, that when we got to set, the actor couldn't move in it. So I would be giving direction hey, get down on the ground. Can you be stealthy, stalky, stalk like a cougar? He's like, I can go like this.
Oh.
I'm this is not good because you have to be pretty active in that outfit. So we had to scrap that, which we put a ton of our budget and ton of time into. And luckily, Kyra McPherson, our head makeup designer, special effects, and Jennifer Crichton, the head of costumes, they got together and after shooting would just literally work on this new costume, and they literally saved the day. So we just shifted shooting to not have creature shots. Then they had about 2.5 weeks to create this suit. And they did.
And it's gnarly.
Yeah.
It's a gnarly looking bastard. That's for certain.
Yeah. So they're incredible. They're both incredible artists. And Kyra in particular loves creatures and creature effects. And she does a lot of special effects for tons of movies. But she also does, when the military does training, they'll make it look like your intestines are blown out for the training. So they'll have real actors and people in the forest, and if you're in the military it's training, you have to come and do the first aid, but they want it to be realistic for this training. So she'll do that. So that's why the special effects on the wounds that happen, I just loved the job that they did on that and her team.
That some of those wounds looked so great.
So great.
Not to spoil, but the waterfall or jumping into the water bit and then seeing them come up and you just see all the blood trailing by her foot. I was just like, something gnarly happened on that fall.
I know.
Also, I really like the trail of blood and gore in the cave that she follows toward the end.
Yeah, I like that too. And in fact, we shot that last, and I was like, oh man, I wish I'd seen this earlier because I think I would have just bloodied him up more the whole time. He looks so good, the bloodier and bloodier he got. But I love, that was just one gory cave. They were putting blood in there for so long, just it was just dripping and So gross.
Yeah, no, that was great set design with the cave.
Oh yeah, that's Myron Hyrak is his name, and he kind of came out of semi-retirement for this, and we did that interior of the cave in a studio.
Oh damn!
So he totally made that, he in his art department.
Wow.
So yeah, I would say my creature came from another dimension. Maybe it passed by the Predator-Prey spaceship. Just like, where are you going? I don't know. I'm just like going here. But I imagine it didn't. It is as it is because it's specific to this place. If that thing landed somewhere else or popped from that dimension, it would be totally different. Because I do think that is so amazing, like this idea of how the natural world and Mother Nature is like the real quantum computer. It's like I love when you look at birds and it's like they have a beak that only fits this food that's in this one place and this type of flower. And it's totally shaped to that because it's like so evolved to its environment. And so I think this creature also is like that, but it also is interdimensional.
After Predator Prey came out, I was saying that I want every movie to be basically a stealth Predator movie where like stuff is happening and all of a sudden a Predator pops up. That's kind of what Dark Nature did for me when, you have these women on this retreat to tackle their traumas and all of a sudden there's a monster. I'm like, yeah, this is it. Stealth Predator. I mean, not that it's a predator, but not that it is a predator in the Predator franchise sense. It is a predator, I think.
Yeah.
And I really liked how, because one of my favorite things when it comes to creature features, I'm a huge fan of cryptids. I was showing you guys my Mothman tattoo earlier. But I really appreciate when you do have a creature that is influenced through history and local mythos and what have you, that it's not over explained. Like you don't just suddenly go, oh yes, that's the Baba Dum thing, and it eats babies, as we know from the local. When they get too hardcore into like over explaining it, and suddenly you know all the rules. But you gave just enough detail so that we have an idea, and then you see it more play out. There's a really great scene. I don't want to spoil it, but there's a really great scene in the cave where you see the explanation of how hundreds of years ago the local groups would appease to it and would kind of work and be copacetic with it, and you kind of see it happen there for a few moments of that like kind of understanding, and that was great.
Yeah, because I think there is, well, thank you. I'm glad you like that part. And I think that there's something in facing your fears and going through difficult physical times that really can strengthen you. And I know I did a little documentary with a Cree elder here, Doreen Spence, about the vision quest that she leads with people, which is 4 days on the land. You go out on the land, no food and no water. And, it's something that you would have done, let's say in Cree culture, maybe as like a rite of passage when you were younger, but it's something people do throughout their whole lives. And it's that idea of like, I'm going to do this thing that I don't know how I'm going to get through 4 days and 4 nights with no water. I've never done that myself. Gearing up, I'd like to do it, but food I can imagine, and you're out there, and she kind of teaches like, whatever you're fearing is going to come up for you. It's going to happen. So how do you face it? Especially when you're under that sort of stress physically, and you do, and you get through it, and you're stronger on the other side. And so I imagine, let's say with this creature, maybe back in the day, he was part of some people's vision quests, and not everyone made it out because you might do the wrong thing, and there's no, it's not like he's going to be like, oh, that's okay, try again tomorrow, you get a ribbon. Like he might eat you. But if he doesn't and you figure it out, maybe you're bestowed with this strength for the rest of your life. And I just love that sort of, I think it's important for us to remember that, because we're so soft these days. Like our lives are relatively easy if you are living in North America and have a house. You're probably not forced to be uncomfortable a lot of the time.
What do you have? Let's talk about the future for you. What do you have coming up? Anything you can tell us about? Can we plug anything?
For sure. Well, I am adapting a book called The Summer of Bitter and Sweet, which is a different genre, but I hope to bring some real thriller aspects to the premise of that. It's an adaptation of a book, and it's about a young Métis woman living on the prairies, and it's her summer after graduating high school. And it's also the summer that her father gets out of prison, but she's never met him because the reason he's in prison is for raping her mother. So she's sort of faced with him coming back into her life and looking at also her own. It's actually a lot about her sexuality, which is that I guess I don't want to, it's kind of like a spoiler. I don't want to give too much away, but she's wondering, like, am I struggling with my sexuality because of how I was conceived? And also now this guy is trying to get back into my life. What, like, who am I really? How much am I like him? And how much am I like my mother and my culture, my family? So it's more of a like romance drama. But I want it to be kind of creepy and scary because why not? And
throw some bones and all in there.
Right, exactly. Well, it's scary because he's a violent guy, so you're always going to be I want, like, you know, there's an edge of being on the edge of your seat component to every time he's around, I think. And then I'm also adapting the book Half Breed, which is a memoir of an incredible mentor and woman named Maria Campbell. And she that'll be hopefully a limited series. And I'm doing both those projects with Banger Films in Toronto. They're awesome. And then working on a sci-fi script with my friend Daniel, who actually plays the mean boyfriend in Dark Nature. And it was his idea of a sci-fi script about basically set in the not too far future where people have merged with machines. Some people have and some people haven't. And so it's about a family who's living off the grid, hiding from this sort of world. And another family comes and says, like, can you take us in? Because we're also hiding. But it's like, are they the cyborgs or are they not? It's like a sci-fi. Yes.
And I know I said that the boyfriend was a bastard from the start. Nothing against Dana. That was just great acting. Like,
he did great.
He was
a very good actor.
He's just a good actor.
And with the lighter too, I was just like, oh, that's a thing people do where they're like, I'm going to associate this moment with this, so you know when I'm doing it. I was just, it's like,
Where can people follow you on the socials to get updates on these projects that you're working on right now?
I have a Instagram, Nika_productions, and I am going to get better. I'm getting better at using it. I'm always like, I don't know, I resisted it for so long, but I do like being on there and following you guys now. And then on Facebook, I just have my name, Berkley Brady, and I don't do Twitter because as a writer, it's like there's just too many distractions in the world. If I get on Twitter, I'll never write a word.
Yeah, Twitter is kind of toxic right now.
Oh, extremely so. You're better off. And I'm on Twitter and I'm saying that.
Okay, well, thank you for joining us this morning and talking about your movie. At the time that this posts, Dark Nature will be hitting select theaters that Friday, the 19th. And then will be available on VOD on the next Tuesday, the 23rd. Is there also a physical release? It's Epic, so they're doing a physical, right?
Yeah, it'll be Blu-ray. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
The Blu-ray comes out June 25th.
Oh, June 25th. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Cool. So you have plenty of chances to see Dark Nature, and we all suggest that you do that.
Oh, and real quick, do you know what kind of special features will be on the Blu-ray?
I do. I'll have the composers, Ghost Keeper. They have a video that'll be on there. The guys, and I believe this is on the Blu-ray, I have to confirm it, but the guys, some of the guys on the production made a little short film in the cave after we wrapped. So I think that's on there. Yeah, and there's a behind the scenes.
It was a great cave.
It was a great cave. It was made out of tarp. Can you believe it? Tarp and pallets. Like, it was seeing what art direction does. It's just, I mean, for every department, but good art directors, what they do, they're literally magicians.
When I have little home projects, I always go to the art director on the gig I'm working on and go, how can I pull this off? I want to make a shelf out of VHS tapes. And they'll go, oh, you got to use this, and this. Really? And they're like, yeah, it'll cost you $5.
I know, that's what I love too. They're realistic. Like with the tarps, the guy like Myron, he took these like just tarps, normal tarps, crunched them up into a ball, string, then took a semi truck or like a big truck and just rolled over them so that they were totally like creased when he took them apart, and then spray painted and paint them so it has all that dimension. It's like, who does that?
That's awesome.
Good art director.
Yeah.
I'm a sucker for composer stuff, so I'm looking forward to that special feature, the music, because that's my thing too. Okay, cool. So Dark Nature in theaters on the 19th, on VOD on the 23rd. And follow Berkley to see the status of all of these upcoming projects. And thanks again for joining us. If you want to follow any of us, we are on all the socials under Eye on Horror, or you can find us at iHorror.com, which is the site we all call home. Our theme music is by Restless Spirit, so go give them a listen. And our artwork is by Chris Fisher, so go give him a like. And everybody go see Dark Nature. Thanks again for joining us today, and we will see everybody in a couple of weeks. So I'm James J. Edwards.
I'm Jacob Davison.
I'm Jonathan Correa.
I'm Berkley Brady.
Keep your eye on horror.